Yeah, welcome back to Brighter Morning with Bo. And we have Mr. Hayden Alexander on the video chat here. And he's chairman of IMA, and he had begun to tell us what the IMA actually does. So let's go back to him and have him talk to us.
Yes. Are you hearing me clearly?
We're hearing you, yes. Lift the volume so all can hear. Yeah.
Let me see if I can lift the
Volume.
volume. Actually, my up at maximum. So. Hold on.
Go ahead, can you?
Yes,
Are you hearing
my
me?
volume. Yes, I'm hearing you clearly.
All right, well, what's happening on your side? All right, let's go. Yeah. Don't touch your instrument. Let the internet work itself through.
Okay.
What's happening with the internet? All right, okay, you're on now. Go ahead and speak.
Okay.
Just let it flow. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. Right. So I was just speaking a bit about the IMA and what it's about. So the IMA is a multidisciplinary research institute. It was established by an act of parliament in 1976, the IMA Act, Chapter 3701, and it became operational in 1978. So the act was amended a few times in 1990 as well as 1996 to allow the IMA to fulfill its main objective of research, of conducting and fostering research. So the IMA primarily does research in terms of marine and coastal zone resources and advises our stakeholders, or many stakeholders, but the main stakeholder being the government of Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of the use of and protection of the marine and coastal zone resources. So that is the main mandate of the IMA. The IMA is also the regional activity center for land-based sources of pollution as well, right? So that will fall under the main remit of the IMA. We also do a lot of outreach work and public education in terms of marine resources, coastal zone resources. We do several research symposia and other outreach activities to inform our stakeholders in terms of the issues surrounding marine resources and coastal zone resources as well. So that's the main function of the Institute of Marine Affairs.
All right, so you really are a knowledge institution, a research institution, supporting environmental and conservation issues having to do with marine environment, and basically to address the issues that are challenging us here in Trinidad and Tobago. Do you get enough funding? For instance, in 2022, how much, 2021-22, how much funding did you get to do the work that you have to do, and is it adequate?
Okay, so so as you know, Dr. Tiwari, yourself being a former planning and development minister, you know, you always would like more funding.
Sure.
And you always do with more funding. However, you know, the IMA is cognizant of the financial situation, both globally and locally. So we really try to do the best with what we are allocated, and as we follow the urgings of the Prime Minister to do more with less. So the focus really of the IMA is to maximize the utilization of our allocations, as well as try to bring in other sources of revenue to become more self-sufficient and not having to depend as much on the subventions from the government, right?
What's happening
So
with
I
Dr.
would say
Juman? Go ahead.
yes. So in terms of our allocation, the IMA is actually quite grateful. Our allocation for in the 2022 budget was actually nearly the same as our allocation from the 2021 budget. So we are grateful, that um, we maintained our allocation, and we even got significant PSIP allocations as well, which would allow us to continue our work in 2021. So 2022, sorry. So we are actually quite grateful for that. So in terms of your specific question, yes, we can always do with more funding, but we are making the best of what we have and looking for other sources of revenue as well, and working on that to become more self-sustainable.
What are some of the primary issues you have on your agenda for 2022?
So for 2022, we have several things. One is the digitization drive, which we are going along following the policies of the government. So we want to digitize a lot of our services that we provide, access to data, and so on. So that's one of the main challenges before digitization. In keeping with that, we the IMA also has, for instance, and this was actually developed before the COVID-19 pandemic. We developed what you call a telecommuting policy, a work from home policy, where staff can work from home for 2 days for the week. And and of course, to work from home, you need access to devices and so on. So the IMA also approved a technology loan policy, which would allow staff who do not have access to devices to access devices as well, all in keeping with the government's digitization drive, right? So so in that way we address two things at once, both productivity and the digitization challenge as well. Because as you know, persons spend a lot of time in traffic and so on, and that takes away from the productive hours. So the work from home policy has actually been going good. Before us as well, we are expanding a bit, and we want to have a greater presence in the style. It has been approved from PSIP to establish um, a marine station in Tobago. That is in the early stages. NIPTEC is looking after that project, and we will be doing some consultations, of course, with the stakeholders in Tobago before moving full speed ahead, of course, with that project. We're also looking at establishment of a mariculture industry, as well as fostering just greater research in the many areas we look at. Of course, becoming more, while looking to become more self-sustainable, of course. So we look for areas as well where we can expand and bring in revenue by, for instance, we do some work with some companies, we company in Point Lisas, in terms of helping them with some research there as well, and many other areas, right? So those are the main things before us. Of course, being cognizant of the challenges created by the pandemic, right, which has in no small way affected how things are being done.
Yeah, but in terms of jurisdiction on the sea, what happens, for instance, when we have these series of spills by heritage? I mean, what is the jurisdiction of, let's say, the EMA on the one hand and the IMA on the other? How does that work?
All right. So the oil spill, or when oil spills in particular, fall under what you call the oil spill contingency plan, the oil spill contingency committee, which is actually headed by the Ministry of Energy, right? So the Ministry of Energy is really in charge of that. The IMA is the IMA has representation on that oil spill contingency committee, and we will go out, take samples if necessary, test samples, determine the source of the oil and so on, and advise in terms of that. So the IMA carries out a research and advisory function as listed in our act. The EMA is a different body. The EMA is also governed by its own statute. So the EMA has a different function. They have a what you would call it, and not that they have the word slips me now.
They are
But
more
the EMA
into
has an
enforcement and so on?
function.
Yeah.
They have an enforcement function, right? So
Yeah.
we have an advisory function. The EMA has an enforcement function. So the EMA can fine and take action and penalties in keeping with the EMA Act. The IMA simply researches, tests, advises in terms of oil spills, right? We do not have an enforcement function.
What is happening with pollution of the ocean? I don't mean just the oil spills, but pollution of, let's say, bathing spaces, and also general pollution that might affect the fishing stock. Have you done research that would allow you to share that kind of information with us?
Yes, indeed. So, so a few years ago, I believe it was 2018 or so, we released our first, what you call, State of the Marine Environment report that reported on some of those issues raised, including pollution of bathing spaces and so on. And it was found, for instance, that a lot of our bathing spaces, especially in certain areas, were being polluted, especially by, of course, from land-based sources, including, they were found to have a lot of, or some levels of fecal matter in our bathing spaces. And I believe Dr. Juman is really the best person to speak about this aspect, but from my understanding, that was mainly came from unplanned development and so on land, right? So the lesson from that is, for instance, that a lot of these some of these unplanned developments do contribute to pollution, because you will not have proper disposal of waste and so on, and that leads to pollution of the marine and coastal environment.
Well, I don't know what has
we were still not
happened.
able to get Dr.
I don't know what has happened to Dr. Juman. We sent the link to her. We're not connecting. Could you call her?
Okay. Yes,
I'm asking
I can. Yes.
not you. I'm asking my people here if they can
producer.
connect with
Yes.
her.
Okay.
Okay. Because I wanted her input into it.
Definitely, Dr. Juman is
But what's happening? What is your sense of what's happening to marine life in Trinidad and Tobago? What can you say that would be valuable for our readers or listeners to know? Because you also mentioned in passing that one of the things that you wanted to deal with is building some kind of industrial capacity out of the ocean environment. Okay, can we talk about that a little bit?
Okay. So what is this in terms of the marine environment? It is challenged, right? Because of, as I said, what our State of Marine Environment report found is that there is pollution, and it does threaten our marine environment in a significant way. It also threatens industries as well, especially of course the fishing industry, and so on. So we just have to be mindful, and we have to consistently look at this and implement policies that would protect the industry. The IMA also contributed as a stakeholder to the Fisheries Act, which we gave our input into that, which has to which has to come to fruition. And we also consult with and speak with a lot of our stakeholders, including Fishermen and Friends of the Sea and other stakeholders, that we advise on the best way to traverse these issues, and and ensure we maintain, while we are utilizing the resources of the marine environment, to also ensure that it's sustainable and that pollution and other aspects does not affect the long-term, our long-term prospects. So my sense is that it is going to be a challenge, especially with other challenges as well, such as climate change, and that is, that is something that has to be addressed. So I was very pleased as well to see several world leaders addressing the climate change issue at the COP26 as well. That is also, climate change is also going to be a significant issue, which the IMA will, and so on. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question about that, but before we do, what is are you involved in 2022 with any attempt to commercialize some aspect of our marine resources? Are you involved in that at all?
When you say to commercialize okay. So I just want to be clear again. The IMA's remit is research and advisory function.
I know that.
You're not involved in any commercialization.
No, but you mentioned that you are involved with some industries, etc.
Right, in terms of doing research
for them. Yeah.
With these industries, yes. We are not involved in any kind of commercialization or anything like that, right? We do research and will provide advice to any stakeholder, any client that that so seeks our research, as we are bound to do under the IMA Act, right? So we are not involved in any commercialization. What they can do, the stakeholders can seek our input in terms of the commercial viability, or environmental viability and so on, which we can advise, right? And that is where our remit ends, right? We would not get involved in any commercialization at all.
What is your assessment of the state of coastal erosion in the country around the two islands? And are there things that we can do? I mean, I go from time to time to Mayaro, and there's significant coastal erosion there. I know the government has a couple of projects in the what you might call the Upper Mayaro area, and also in Matlot. But what's happening with coastal erosion, and what do we need to do, given the reality of climate change, given the issues that you mentioned? What should we be doing, really? What does your research tell you?
Right. I'm very sorry Dr. Juman isn't here, because Dr. Juman actually sat on an integrated coastal zone management policy committee, and so she is really the expert on that. So
they have her on the line now for some reason.
Okay,
she can't get connected. They have her on the line. They're talking to her.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope that's sorted out. But in terms of that, um, so in 2012, for instance, the IMA lobbied to develop a integrated coastal zone marine policy framework and action plans. So the IMA, at core remit, we do advise and sit on committees. We have representation committees that deal with integrated coastal zone management. However, the actioning of those things falls under the Ministry of Works and Transport, which I believe has a coastal zone um, unit that actions these with action whatever comes out of the policy
Do they
frame.
consult with you?
Yep.
Do they consult with
Of
you?
course.
Do they take your advice?
Yeah.
Do
Yes.
you inform them about your research and stuff like that?
Yes. So yes, the IMA does. Would advise, as I said, we do sit. We have representation, which Dr. Juman sat on an integrated coastal zone policy. The Ministry of Works and Transport also has representation. So it is an all-encompassing policy that all the stakeholders are involved in. And yes.
Okay. Did we lose him too now? What's happening there? All right, let's take a break and we'll come back. I hope we'll get Dr. Juman when we come back.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionst.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
As we celebrate the festival of light over darkness, let Magic Mist Services Limited take away the hassle of your Diwali home cleaning and maintenance needs. With our team of professional service team members, we will ensure your home receives the magic touch. Give us a call today at 638-6675 or 332-5522. Shub Diwali from Magic Mist Services Limited.
You did the right thing. So now we're giving you things. Republic Bank thanks you and wants to reward you for getting vaxxed. Win $5,000 in prizes every week, plus one of 2 cars in December. You took care of your health, and now we're taking care of you. $5,000 and a chance to win a car. See press and log on to republictt.com for details.
Mangalese Trading Company Limited. Specialist in PVC ceiling, gypsum ceiling, suspended ceilings, medallions, lights, metal framings, and SPCS flooring, known as vinyl plank. Now introducing
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
All right. Welcome back to Brighter Morning with Bo and Bo Tiwari, and we have Mr. Hayden Alexander, the chairman of IMA, on the video link, and Dr. Rahana Juman, the acting CEO. I think we now have her on the phone. Can I say good morning to Dr. Juman?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm sorry for all these technical difficulties.
Okay, all right. I want to ask you what the problem was. It's not a complex technology, but how are you doing this morning? Good?
I'm fine, thank you. I've joined early, but for some reason they're not seeing me.
All right, okay. You've been following what's happening at the COP conference 26?
I've started, yes.
Okay, the Prime Minister is going to speak this morning. The Prime Minister of Barbados and Antigua and Jamaica spoke yesterday. Did IMA make an input in the Prime Minister's contribution this morning?
I'm not sure. I know we made an input and a contribution he had to make on the blue economy
Yes.
and impact of climate change with regards to the blue economy.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about that a little bit. From your perspective, what is the opportunity of the blue economy? I asked the chairman that, and he indicated that, I mean, most of what you do is research, and I understand that. But the research actually tells you what are the possibilities. So I just wanted to tease out a little bit in this conversation with you what might be some of the opportunities.
So Trinidad and Tobago have, under our jurisdiction, 15 times more ocean space than we actually have in terms of land space.
That's correct.
So we have to now look at the ocean for economic prosperity and expanding the blue economy, because we have always depended somewhat on the blue economy in terms of oil and gas exploration, fisheries, and tourism. But we now need to expand a bit further and look at other economic opportunities. And some of these opportunities include opportunities in the maritime sector, the shipping sector, in terms of things like shipbuilding and so forth. And then also too, even in terms of the mariculture, because as I mentioned, well, our commercial species are either fully exploited or overexploited, and we have to look at food security. And one of the projects the IMA is actually working on right now is to develop the mariculture sector, basically growing fish out in the sea, working with all the stakeholders, including the private sector, to explore that opportunity of farming fish out in the ocean. Other opportunities would be things like bioprospecting in terms of finding, genetic material or other sources of compounds that can be used for pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and so forth, as well as even things like renewable opportunities with regards to renewable energy, and even in terms of some mining, mineral mining, and so forth. But of course, that has to be done to ensure that we don't cause more damage to the environment.
Yeah, there is also a fair amount of research going on now with microorganisms in the ocean and their potential for energy, renewable and green energy resources. Are you involved in anything related to that?
No, not the Institute is not involved in anything related to that at this point. A lot of our research as it relates to climate change and the marine environment is based on the coastal monitoring of our ecosystems, and on looking at the state of those and how they're being impacted by both human and climate impacts.
All right.
And providing advice to government with regards to planning and even in terms of expanding into the blue economy.
Yes. The point that you make of having more ocean space than land space is an important one. It's one that is made by islands across the world in order to basically make themselves a little more secure in terms of food security, to address the issue of exploitation by big boats that come in from all over the world and exploit the resources, and also for the pollution issue, but also the capacity of the ocean itself for generating commercial opportunities and income and industries. And I hope we'll take a serious look at that. I am anxious to hear what the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago will say today. I did look at the Prime Minister of Barbados yesterday, and she focused on the challenges for the industrialized world in making sustainability and climate change mitigation and adaptation possible, and the financing that is required for that. So I'm interested in what our Prime Minister would say from our perspective, but we'll wait for that. The other, how do you respond to the way the COP26 is going, and the fact, I mean, when I talked to your chairman, he indicated to me, for instance, that you got about the same funding as last year, and you're trying to make do with the funding as best you can with the agenda that you have, and you're trying to do more with less, etc. But do you have projects that can be put up for international financing? I mean, they talked about $100 billion over the last 5 years, which was never raised. They're now trying to raise it. And they're talking about greater commitments now, and this has to be financed by the developed world. And if you're going to have global sustainability, then those who polluted and destroyed the earth over the last 100 years should really be paying for the developing world to address the issue of sustainability. So how do you respond to what is happening at COP26? You think we'll get anywhere with that?
Well, I'm hoping, because it's very important for Caribbean and small island developing states in terms of our vulnerability to natural disasters. The island has been advocating for 1.5 degrees. Well, I think for the Paris Agreement, it was 2 degrees Celsius, increased by 2 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels. That even would be cause impact to island states. We are most vulnerable to impacts from storms and sea level rise and so forth. And also with regards to food security, I mean, Trinidad and Tobago is already experiencing impacts from climate change. It's not something that's happening in the future. We're experiencing now. We're seeing issues in terms of salt water, salinization of freshwater aquifers, salt water coming further inland. We're seeing issues of coastal erosion, accelerated coastal erosion, and so forth. So our vulnerability is most important because we live on small islands, and there's not a lot of space inland to migrate to. And again, food security and economic sustainability, because most of us small island states do depend on our ocean resources for economic prosperity. So yes, I hope that is taken into consideration, funding small island states so that we could become more sustainable, so that we could become more resilient to the impacts of climate change. We could protect our citizens from the disasters. You know, we could have disaster risk reduction and so forth.
I mean, one of the big things that is becoming an issue now is
Hello?
Are you hearing me?
You just broke up a little bit, sorry.
Yeah. One of the big issues that is emerging now is the issue of climate refugees. And
yes.
we are seeing it wherever there's flooding, there are forest fires, things like that over the world.
And drought.
In both industrialized and in developing countries, a perpetual issue. But in Trinidad and Tobago, I don't think we'll have climate refugees internally, or if we do, I think we can make an effort to manage it because of our small population. But do you think that we will have, I think you hinted that we are already having that problem, where climate change is making it impossible for people to live in the areas in which they now live? Do we have a lot of that?
We have a lot of vulnerabilities that due to climate change. We have issues with coastal erosion. We've always had some coastal erosion, and with climate change, it's accelerated coastal erosion that makes people living near the coastline vulnerable. We have issues in terms of, with farmers in particular, where they've planted in coastal areas and they are experiencing problems with saltwater intrusion or salinization. That is already happening. So, of course, there's a food security issue. There's also, we've also documented an overall decrease in rainfall levels. What we have is more extreme weather events, a very, extreme rainfall event, for instance, that causes coastal flooding. So we're already experiencing some of the impacts. Also, to things like our coral reefs, with elevated sea surface temperature, we've already experienced coral bleaching events. The worst event we've had so far is 2010, where we had about 50% mortality of our corals. Now, corals are very important for the tourism industry in Tobago, but it's also important with regards to providing coastal protection. So when these resources become impacted, then it has an ongoing impact on the communities that depend on them.
All right.
So what I wanted to add is that Trinidad and Tobago has developed an integrated coastal zone management policy, strategy, and action plan for Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the objectives of that is actually to look at adaptation to climate change, right, as well as building resilience of coastal ecosystems and coastal communities. That has been submitted for approval.
We can get financing for that? International?
Possibly, yes.
All right, okay. Now, I've got to close now because we're up to the 8 o'clock hour and the show ends at that time. So, Dr. Juman, thank you very much. I am sorry that we didn't get to you until quite late. But thank you very much for your contribution. And I'm going to ask your chairman, Mr. Alexander, if he would have the last word on this as we close and break for the news.
Okay, so thanks, Dr. Tiwari, and thanks for having us on your show today, myself and Dr. Juman. In spite of whatever technical difficulties we got through all that. So the IMA, again, is a research and advisory institute, and we take our mandate very seriously, and we are working to provide advice to the government and our other stakeholders in terms of the problems facing the marine and coastal zone environment, and and action will come from it, right? And and we go forward as we want to make ourselves more sustainable and more effective in terms of what we do, right? So again, I thank you, and we are available at any time for if you have questions and concerns, and if you want to have us back again, we are definitely available for that.
Yeah,
so
maybe after the conference is over, I will have another discussion with you. That's to say the COP26 conference. Thank you very much. This is Brighter Morning with Boat. Thank you for staying with us. You are on MCTV, Multicultural TV, and I am Bo Tiwari signing off so that Andrew Chan can give you the news.